summary of Daf Tesvav of Likkutei Torah Sefer Yikra. These are two maimarim about Pesach. So the first maimar, and actually both maimarim, are on the pasuk that says that you should eat matzah for 6 days, and on the 7th day will be Atzeres, will be a special Yom Tov for Hashem. Don't do work. So we notice a few things. First of all, we notice that it says it's a Yom Tov for Hashem, not a Yom Tov for us, unlike with Shmini Atzeres where it says it will be Yom Tov for you. And also it says don't do any work. It doesn't, well, not any, but it doesn't specify only don't do Mlechas Aveda, only the type of work forbidden on Yom Tov, but just says don't do work, which implies don't do any work, even cooking, which is allowed on Yom Tov. So to explain that the reason for the answer to both of these questions is that one answers the other, that because Shvisha Pesach is a day which is really totally for Hashem, it's a day of godly revelation and beyond other Yom Tovim. That's why it says don't do work, because it's really such a great day that it's beyond eating. And if you're not eating, then really we shouldn't be cooking either. Only practically we do eat, at least nowadays. Before Mashiach, we're eating even on Shvisha Pesach, and therefore we practically cook. But the pasuk hints on the idea that this is really a day beyond eating. Why? Well, in general, eating has a positive element that it elevates the food to our level, but then elevates us to the food's level. And the food has a source in Olam Atay, in the world of chaos, which is great spiritual power, just that it's not stabilized and therefore comes down into this physical world. And the carbon shlamim was an example of how we can align things again. Normally, our animal soul blocks godly revelation that is achieved through our mitzvahs from being revealed and manifest in our soul, in our godly soul. The animal soul blocks that off. Now, when we bring a carbon shlamim, then it placates the animal soul, and it also elevates the animal soul, so it no longer blocks the godly soul, and it lets the spiritual impact of our mitzvahs come down into our mitzvah. Now, the word shlamim includes two meanings, either complete or peace, but either way, this is the accomplishment of the karma shlamim. And that's why the karma shlamim brought for Yom Tov was called shalmei simcha, the shlam of joy, because when we have God Hashem revealed to us, and we realize the great opportunity that we have to serve Hashem, so that fills us with joy. If so, seemingly eating is a great thing. It elevates us to a higher level of connection, of dveikus with Hashem. But still, in base, we explain that in Olam Haba there'll be no eating. What is Olam Haba? It's not like the Rambam says in Gan Eden, but like the Ramban says, even while we're in a body after Tchias HaMesim, after the resurrection of the dead, we won't need to eat. Why? Because eating implies that we bring down godliness and we can internalize it in spheres. And drinking implies lowering it even furthermore, not only to the intellectual spheres, Chachma Bina, but even to the emotional spheres, the Chesed Gvura Tiferes, etc. But if the revelation of Hashem is so much that we can't internalize it, it's beyond internalizing, so then it's beyond eating. Eating means you take it inside you. And we can't do that once Mashiach comes, because the godly revelation will be so powerful. And that's the same thing about Shvisha Pesach. Shvisha Pesach is a very powerful godly revelation. And that's why Hashem tells us in Shvisha Pesach, stop crying out to me. Just Hashem will fight for you. You be quiet. The idea of being quiet and stopping to cry out, stopping to talk, represents that this is a day beyond speech, beyond understanding, just with just total bittul to Hashem, letting Hashem shine through. And and through that, the sea, which represents the Alma Discussion and the dry land, Alma Discalia, they can all come together. Normally, the sea is the mashpia, the giver that provides moisture and water, rain for the dry lands. And now they can all come together, and the sea turns into dry land, meaning that even what's normally beyond us spiritually now is suddenly accessible, to the extent that even a simple maid at the sea saw more than Yecheskel saw at other times. And because at other times Yecheskel saw everything with division, whereas at the sea everything came together as one. And that's the idea of the water turning into a wall, almost like freezing. What's the idea of something frozen? That all the water, which would all be separate droplets, all become one. And therefore, the Jewish people at Shvi Shel Pesach, they're beyond eating, and that's the meaning of the pasuk, which implies not even cooking. Now, the second mimer expands on similar themes. And notes that when talking about Mashiach, it talks about also a second splitting, but not of the sea, instead of the river. And instead of splitting into 12 for the 12 styles of the spiritual service of the tribes, it splits into 7, corresponding to the 7 shepherds of the Jewish people, or to the 3 patriarchs and 4 matriarchs, the Ovis and the Mois. And the difference between Mashiach and now, or the splitting of the sea, is that with Mashiach there'll be a revelation of Re'iyah. We'll be able to see Hashem. That's like the level of Aden, which is Chachma. Chachma is where we see the concept, whereas Binah is where we understand more left brain, more logically we understand the parameters of the concept. But with Mashiach, it will be our Renan Niflos. We'll see wonders, and we'll get there through the difficulties and challenges of the exile times. We have a hard time earning a living, and both the actual fact of earning a living together with staying focused on Hashem while we're doing that, but through the challenges of nowadays, that's how we'll reach the times of Mashiach. And that's why it says, when talking about Mashiach and the splitting of the rivers, it says, Hashem ki anaftabi, thank you, Hashem, for being angry at me. Now, for 6 days we eat matzah, but then the 7th day is beyond. That's Aden, this Chachma, Mashiach, where there's no eating because we can't internalize it. It's beyond, because it's such a great revelation, and it's beyond the poverty and the difficulty of Galus. Matzah is called the poor man's bread, whereas with Mashiach we're beyond that, and therefore the Torah says don't do work. It doesn't specify that cooking and work to do with food is excluded, because really Shvi Shel Pesach is beyond eating. Now, although Pesach is so high, but then through Sfiras Omer we work bit by bit to try to bring a taste of this down to us through refining one sphera at a time.